It's time for this week's episode of Brandon Sports Talk, featuring in-depth interviews from those who are trending in the world of athletics. And now, here's the host of Brandon Sports Talk, Brandon Pate.
Welcome back to Brandon Sports Talk. In today's episode, I have the privilege to interview the Georgia Southern's head swimming coach, Coach Allyson Sweeney. How are you doing today?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm doing good. Can you talk about how you knew that you wanted to get started in coaching in collegiate swimming and diving?
I remember the exact moment. So I had the privilege and honor of swimming at Texas A&M competitively. And unfortunately, at the end of my freshman year, I started experiencing back pain. Long story short, I ended up having to sit out my sophomore year, had back surgery. I don't recommend that for anyone. If they can avoid a back injury that involves surgery, please save yourself some pain. But at that time, I recognized that I needed to take a step back, and I made a commitment to myself that year to be of service to my team. If I couldn't help them in the water, I was going to do anything that I could to help them outside of the water. So if that was holding a stopwatch, taking splits, being that shoulder someone needed to lean on, whatever, right? So that kind of was the first taste of seeing our sport from a perspective outside of the water, right? And seeing the impact that it can make. Fast forward another year, I was able to rehab back into the water, make my conference team, all the things. And I remember sitting at a meet. We were at sectionals, and I don't even remember what I had just swam. I just knew I was kind of waiting for some feedback from my coach, and he was, there was the line, right, of other athletes seeking feedback. So I sat down on the bleachers and I kind of just took stock of all that was around me. And it happened to be like a sectional meet, right? Like, so it was at College Station. So it was at our home pool, but there were a lot of like club coaches around in all different ages and such. And I was watching the interactions between athlete and coach, and I was like, wow, like this is really cool, right? Like not only do I love this sport, but I love the impact that it's played in my life. And I love watching a coach be able to make an impact on someone's life. So in that regard, that's when I knew I wanted to be a division I coach. And I wanted to, my dreams started shifting from chasing after my, athletic aspirations to, okay, I want to go help people chase after their dreams. And then, kind of went from there. Over the years, my passion is evolved, but that has always remained kind of the baseline of what I do.
How is it like, obviously, getting to compete in the SEC and compete against those teams like Georgia, Alabama, and Tennessee?
So that's a great question, because I was at A&M actually when we transitioned into the SEC. So I spent my first 2 years a part of the Big 12, and then my remaining years we were a part of the SEC. And I've been really lucky and fortunate to kind of be in a lot of situations in a lot of places, because we moved around a lot growing up, where I've gotten to rub elbows with some of the best in our sport, right? Like I trained for a period of time in high school out of the University of Texas, competing in high school at Georgia Tech regularly. My brothers both swam at Georgia. So getting to know the Georgia coaching staff really, really well because of that. All the things, right? And it gets you really inspired because you get to watch some of the best and do what they do and do it really well. I would certainly say that, and partially maybe this was a little bit of a passion that I had at the beginning of my career. I always just enjoyed watching and observing just practice, quite frankly, and watching the Texas men do their warm up and seeing the way that they interact with each other, or at big meets, watching some of the best athletes, just kind of how they interact with the coaches and how they handle themselves and then how they execute. Like, getting to compete against those sorts of people at A&M was really exciting. In order to continue growing, you have to put yourself in situations that force your growth as well, right? And so competing against the best helps make you better too. And so I even look at it in the same capacity as a coach. So it was a lot of fun. I got to be a part of a team at A&M. During that time, I swam with a lot of really talented women, a lot of really elite athletes, Olympians, U.S., Canada, Mexico, you have it, U.S. national teamers, and these girls could throw down, and it was so inspiring, right? And here I am, I'm like, man, I wish I could do what you do, but also even better humans. As talented as they were in the water, they were. I look back on it and I'm just so grateful to have been around them and have them in my life. So really fortunate.
What was that experience like? Obviously, getting to go to those competitions that obviously your brothers went to that was at Georgia.
Well, it's when you look at Georgia swimming, obviously they have such a rich history, right? Of excellence and tradition. And what's been really fun for me as an older sister of my brothers is not only getting to see, they were part of the team when Allyson Schmidt was there, and those ladies of the 2008 and 2012 teams. Growing up when we were in Georgia, my brothers actually were really good friends with all of the Litherlands, Gunnar Bentz, all of these, really elite, athletes. But watching them get to interact with their teammates and seeing how genuine those humans were and the relationships that they had, it was just really fun, it makes you realize the best of the best are good at what they do because they work harder than everyone else to a certain extent. They have the talent and all the things. But at the end of the day, they're humans too, right? And, I think so my younger brother, the oldest of my brothers, just recently, a couple months ago, and he invited all of his, a good portion of those Olympic athletes back, right? But to him, they're friends, they're family, they're his team, and it was just really cool. I might get a little emotional on you here, but it was really cool to see those relationships and see how important that family is. So that was the biggest takeaway from moments like those.
How was that like, obviously getting your start at Florida Southern to become a college coach?
So I knew, I mentioned to you early on, I knew I wanted to be a Division I college coach, right? And my journey to get there was a little bit longer than usual, maybe. I don't know. So I went and coached at the age group level, coaching at Swim Atlanta. Really kind of grew my coaching experience in that regard, right? Because you're working with all sorts of kids and different age ranges and different talent levels and all the things. But I knew that I wanted to get back into college coaching. And so my way back to that world was going to Florida Southern and serving as the assistant coach there with Mike Blum, while also working as the head coach of the club team there. And I will tell you that was an interesting sort of learning opportunity for me, because obviously I had the opportunity to swim at a Division I Power 5 program in the SEC, right? And so stepping into D2 was a different perspective for me. I had to learn how to adapt this may not be the right phrasing, but adapt my expectations to my athletes, right? Or evolve them in a sense, maybe not lower them by any means, because between you and I like to keep my standards pretty high, because I think that's my responsibility as a coach. But I will tell you that those athletes in Lakeland at Florida Southern, they taught me more about life than I probably knew at that time as a young coach, right? Having the balance of being an elite athlete, but also I can have a life outside of this too. And I think that's the importance of of having balance too. Because for me, I was like, I love working hard. I love grinding, but you can only grind for so long before you're kaput, right? And so getting to see life through their eyes was just it was very inspiring to me. And that's something that I took into the next couple steps of my life.
What was that like, obviously, going back to the SEC and going to Auburn to become a volunteer assistant?
Ooh, that's a good question. So when Gary Taylor called me up and offered me the opportunity to come serve on their staff in their first year as a volunteer coach, I knew that it was going to be really hard work. I knew that I was going to learn a lot, and I knew that it wasn't going to be easy, right? And I was so excited about it, so excited, because I knew that I was going to learn things at a level that I hadn't seen before yet as a coach, right? And it's a completely different perspective as an athlete. Though I will tell you that every Division I program, believe it or not, there are similarities across the board, but every program has its own specific identity and culture, and every head coach does too. So I got to learn a different perspective and understand a different way of approaching a combined program. And how do you train all of the athletes across the board? Do you train them all together as a team? Do you train them men and women? Do you train them in specific training groups? What is the athlete to coach relationship like between different members of the staff? All of those things. How do you build a championship culture coming in as a new head coach, right? Because that's what Gary was doing at the time, and that's what all of those fellow coaching staff members were doing as well. And so I knew I was going to get the opportunity to observe that, which I was so grateful for, and kind of just soak it in. And I was really also very honored because of my journey up until that point. I was pretty honored that I had a little more experience than the typical volunteer, that I was going to get to play a very small role in kind of developing some of those important figures as well. And to me, I, as a volunteer, I felt in my heart it was my responsibility to be the conduit between the coaching staff and the athletes, but ultimately playing a supporting role for both individual groups. So it was amazing. It was so much fun. It was stressful, but I wouldn't change it for the world.
Of course, as a volunteer assistant, what was that experience like, getting to see that team go to the 2019 NCAA championship?
So first off, I didn't know if I was going to get the opportunity to go to NCAAs, because you have to qualify a certain number of athletes in order to bring us a specific number of coaches on deck. And again, being the volunteer, I was like, who knows, but please, please. And so I got the opportunity to come along, and what was really fun up until that point was I was getting to work again with some of the most raw, talented athletes that I'd ever worked with before. I was working with individuals who were aspiring to make the Olympic team. I was working with people who were aspiring to be, all Americans. And as a coach, that was my first taste of doing that. And so I really got to learn and experience how important minute details are at the highest of levels, and then maintaining those levels too. And so that was really, really fun for me as a coach to again be along for the ride, to kind of fill the areas that the other coaches on staff may not always have had the time or the opportunity to, because they were doing all the other things. And so I was like, okay, I'll pick this up and run with it. But what was also the most fun for me too is I never made NCAAs as an athlete. It was something I aspired to do. I wasn't, God had a different plan for me, but that was kind of, I actually served as a volunteer at A&M my last year of grad school. And I was able to go to NCAAs there, and I was like deer in the headlights. It was so stressful, but going to NCAAs at Auburn as a volunteer was a whole different shift for me, because I felt like until I stepped foot on that deck, I didn't realize how many people I had started to get to know within our coaching world and in our swimming world, right? And so I was like, oh my gosh, like I'm seeing all my friends too doing the thing that I love, doing the thing that we all love, and then getting to watch some fast swimming and being in support of that was really fun too.
What was that feeling like getting to come to Chapel Hill, to come to UNC Chart Hills to become an assistant coach there?
Oh, so that was after my year at in Auburn, I was on the grind, right? I wanted to find a job, quite frankly, a paying job. And so, I felt a pull in the direction of Chapel Hill, but I didn't really know what that was yet. And so just kind of kept my feelers out. And when Mark Ingloff got the head coaching job there, I was like, whoa, like, I feel a pull in this direction, but now I feel it even more. And I felt it for a couple reasons. I guess I should explain. So oldest of 7, I am. I've got 3 brothers and 3 sisters, all swimmers, all Division I athletes. And my Mark getting the head coaching job was kind of it was kind of an alignment or a little bit of fate, right? So I'm the oldest of 7. I've got 3 brothers and 3 sisters, all Division I athletes and swimmers. The oldest of my 3 sisters, Devin, swam her first 2 years at Missouri and then her final 3 years at Auburn. But her first 2 years there at Missouri, she swam for Mark and Jack. While they were at Missouri before they moved over to Chapel Hill. So I knew them through my sister, and I knew that their values aligned with my own, right? And so when Mark got the head coaching job, I jumped at the opportunity to make that connection. When he offered me the opportunity to join his new staff and build something special, no hesitation, none at all. I knew that I was gonna get to finally like kind of spread my wings and try some things that I learned through my entire journey. And in a lot of ways, I really missed those people, but it was getting to be there in the ACC, which I would say is quickly becoming one of the most competitive conferences in the country, was really fun and really eye-opening and really, again, we talk. I keep mentioning like learning experiences, but that's all that this has been. This whole journey is taking it all in and trying to grow and inspire. So,
of course, while at UNC, what was it like getting to compete against those teams in the ACC, like NC State, Duke, and Florida State?
It's interesting. It's the same thing that I mentioned with regards to being at A&M, right? Like, you recognize that you're getting to be a part of something really special, right? Like getting to watch the Virginias of the world and the NC States of the world, staffs that I very much respect and have friends on those staffs. And quite frankly, like I've got athletes there as an age group coach who have made their way to those institutions as well, right? And so like there's a part of me that I get to watch these people continue to grow. And so getting to be a part of the ACC at a time where in the top 10 at NCAA, like you've got Virginia, you've got NC State, you've got Louisville, like you've got like these teams are the best of the best, and you're getting to see all these staffs and these programs attack it a little bit differently, and you kind of just get to absorb it all in, but also jumping into that environment and saying like, I want to be the best too. Game on. And I'm going to do it my way. And here, you know what I mean? It's really exciting. Again, stressful, right? Like, and never easy, but at the end of the day, like we get to play a game, right? Like that's what I do. I coach a game every day, right? And it's so fun. And I think like right now, when I think about the ACC in particular, like maybe I'm biased, but there are coaches in that conference right now that I think are really pushing the sport of swimming forward in a lot of different ways. And it's really exciting to kind of be around those people and learn from that, and also get to see history happening right in front of you too, and get to be a part of it. So that's, I loved my experience and my time there, and for a lot of reasons.
Of course, during your 3 seasons at UNC, what were some of your biggest accomplishments as a coach?
Gosh, that's a really great question. I'm really proud of the culture. Personally speaking, I feel like I'm a pretty relationally driven coach. I want to get to know my athletes for who they are and the people that they are. And in a lot of ways, I want to empower them for all that they can become. And so, over the course of, I was heading into my 4th year there before I got this opportunity at Georgia Southern. We were creating something really special that was starting to blossom and is continuing to blossom. And so getting people to believe that, yes, you can make a national team, you can make an Olympic team, and here's how you do it, right? And getting to be a part of those conversations, getting to be a part of that sort of dream making was really special. I was also there. Our first year got cut short, unfortunately, by COVID, right? And so I was there during that time as well. And so when I look back at like some of my proudest moments, it has nothing to do with necessarily what's happening in the water, but more so what's happening outside of the water. And don't get me wrong, like there are swims that I look back on and I'm like, that's right, we did that. Like, that's amazing. And there are too many to kind of like count, but being able to go to NCAAs the year after it had been canceled, with, I think we took 8 women that year, and we finished 12th, right? Like one of the smallest teams there, so to speak, in the top 15, and we finished 12th. Right. And the team before, we were positioned to do really well before NCAAs had been canceled in 2020. But before that, they hadn't placed that high in a long time. And so that was really special. And we got the buy-in and people really believed. And then it was just kind of upward trajectory from there. Another thing that I look fondly on, for example, was last year, our men's team qualified. They got their A cut in the 800 freestyle relay at our last chance meet that we hosted, and we were the only ones like in the water in that heat, in that event. But the whole team showed up. The whole team showed up to watch these 4 guys go for it, and they only had 1 shot at it. And watching everyone go, I mean, I still have the video saved on my phone, right? Like watching everyone go wild. It was like tears, and then getting to watch those people go do those things at NCAAs was just really special. So again, maybe not necessarily the things that happened in the water that I'm most proud of, but certainly, again, it's the relationships thing that drives it home. So
how was that transition like from leaving UNC to then taking the head coaching job at Georgia Southern?
Great question. So in a lot of ways, Georgia Southern, in talking with you, like I feel like I'm reflecting on like my journey and recognizing how fortunate I've been and really, really lucky, because this was an opportunity that I didn't see coming, right? I've known for a little while that I wanted to go flex my muscles, so to speak, and try my hand at this head coaching thing. And that's a really scary thing for me to admit, because I also recognized how daunting of a task that is, right? Like, it is a lot of responsibility. You are managing a lot of things. And again, having had the opportunity to be in a lot of places where I got to serve under a lot of different head coaches, like I knew how hard it was. And yet that getting to create something that was my own, and build something that is part of my vision, but also get to work, the relationship aspect of the student athlete to coach thing in a little bit, like Man, it was so like getting this opportunity and having it presented to me at the time that it was presented. It felt like fate, and it was really hard to leave the place that I was at because I was really happy. We were building something really special, right? And I wanted to be a part of it, so I had to sit with myself a little bit and ask myself, Allison, if you were talking to one of your athletes, you would tell them to go chase their dreams, right? And that was really hard to admit because I felt like I was leaving my team and maybe performing a little bit of a selfish act. But that group, I couldn't have asked for a better response from them, right? And I think about them all the time. And now that I'm here at Georgia Southern, I get to build those relationships with this women's team too. I get to build something really special. We have a lot of talent here, and getting them to believe in the talent that they have and being able to cultivate it and pull it all together and show not only my athletes, but then everyone else, like, we're good at this. Like, it's why I do what I do.
Of course, how did your time at UNC help you to take that jump to become the head coach at Georgia Southern and build your own program?
So, wow, another great question. Again, I talked about getting the opportunity to spend a lot of time under a lot of different head coaches and getting to watch specifically two programs start from scratch, right? Both in my first year at Auburn, because I was a part of the first year of the coaching staff under Gary, and then also my 3.25-ish year with Mark at UNC. And I fully believe that I am this continually growing mosaic of like the experiences around me, right? And like the people that I'm around, and I really try to soak in everything that I can. And so taking the things that I learned either through experience or observation or just word of mouth or whatever at UNC, and then taking it here and trying to, again, leap of faith type of moment and implementing it on my own has been a really daunting task. But it's also been, again, another really big learning curve. And I'm not perfect. I think I try really hard to let my women know that, but I also try really hard to teach them and show them my intentions and then act on them, right? Like, intentions you can have the best of intentions, but if your actions don't align with that, no one's going to care, right? And so, I try really hard to model and lead by example for them and show them that as well. So again, still learning. I think we'll all continue to grow and learn together, and I'm really excited for that.
How has it been like, obviously, getting to go coach against those teams like Tennessee and ECU, and who are some of the other teams in your conference that you've coached against?
Sure. Yeah, for sure. So we're in a unique situation here at Georgia Southern in that we are our school is in the Sun Belt Conference. At the moment, the Sun Belt Conference does not sponsor swimming and diving, though they have intentions of doing so next year. So we are currently in the CCSA conference, right? And so we compete against UNC Asheville. Queens is in our conference this year, Liberty, FGCU, North Florida, Gardner-Webb, a lot of like really competitive mid-major programs, right? And so it's fun to go to meets against, I think of all those teams, even as I'm listing them out to you, like they all have something that makes them really good, but they're all very different too, right? And so being able to go to meets against those teams in different settings is really important in order to teach my women how to be their strongest version against their competitors. But I think it's also really fun to compete against people who are outside of your conference, right? So you mentioned ECU, who is kind of a great example of someone who is of similar, but who competes outside of conference. We went to a midseason meet at South Carolina, and UNCW was there. Another program who had a new head coach come in Bobby Montero, and has really built something really impressive, and has some really elite athletes that are, they just swim. They're swimming really fast, and that gets you inspired. And it also allows you to go compete against, take my women, compete against them, and show them we can do this too. So it's been really fun. I feel very grateful because a lot of the coaches in this conference have been very welcoming for me, specifically, I should say to me, but it's not been easy jumping into this head coaching role in the middle of the fall semester. I made this joke. It's not a joke, but it's funny. I made this comment with my team this afternoon at our team meeting. It's like, first day on the job was October 10th. Sixth day on the job was my first dual meet with you all, which happened to be the second dual meet y'all had this year. So it's been a whirlwind, but it's been a lot of fun.
Can you talk about, of course, the culture that you've started to build upon for Georgia Southern?
Yeah, so I've got the way I've approached it with the women is two bigger team identities or values or whatever you want to talk about, and I think I've alluded to it a lot in our conversation. In that relationships is really important to me. Family is really important to me. I tell my women this a lot, and especially in individual conversations. I remember probably 2 races of my own from college. The rest, couldn't tell you, right? But what I do remember are the people and how they made me feel, right? And that provides the foundation off of anything that you can work off of, right? And so rooting ourselves within our community is really important to me, to develop a family type of atmosphere, and then defining what that looks like and how are we going to live that out on a daily basis. And then the second big thing that I'm trying to cultivate within this program is defining what it means to strive for excellence and then living that out, right? And so being willing to take a chance, being willing to kind of dive in head first when it comes to working hard, being really disciplined and diligent in that regard. And because again, the skills that you're going to learn in the the swimming realm, the sport of swimming, those are the same skills that are going to transcend the sport and make you successful long-term in life. And so that's, kind of one of the reasons why I also love doing what I do.
As a head coach, what does the recruitment process look like for you, and what are some of the things that you look at in those swimmers?
For sure. So it's a combination of factors. I would say that first and foremost, the thing that I look at most, and I kind of love that you asked this right after the culture that I'm trying to develop within the team. But first and foremost, what I'm looking at is this person that if I were to bring them in, are they going to contribute to the culture that I'm trying to create? Right? Do their values align with my own? And I do that in a number of ways, but it's mostly about just getting to know the person as who they are. And then secondly, what sort of potential do they have athletically? Can I cultivate this? That they're going to be able to bring into my team. Obviously I'm a swim coach, right? Of course I look at that. But for me, it starts with getting to know the people, and then getting out and being able to watch them swim at meets and watch them practice and watch them compete. And then ultimately, if we are lucky enough to get to a point where they're able to come on campus because, we've gotten to that point, they're interested, I'm interested, right? I want to make sure that the team connects with them too. I want to make sure that the team feels like this is someone that they want to be a part of their family. Yes, I want you to be my sister. Come on in. That's really important too. Actually, it's probably one of the most important things. And so their input plays a big role and big factor in it too.
As a head coach, what is it like obviously seeing those athletes that are freshmen putting on that Georgia Southern swim jersey for the first time?
It's again, because I'm in my first couple months here. In a lot of ways, I feel like a freshman too. Actually, I mean, I am, quite frankly, my freshmen know more about Georgia Southern than I do in some circumstances, right? But it's been really fun to fall in love with this community and continue to develop the pride of wearing, the Georgia Southern gear. And then see that in not just my freshmen, but all 4 years across the board. Specifically, like I've got 2 seniors on the team. We just honored them a couple weeks ago at their senior meet, and seeing how many people showed up for these 2 girls, not only in their family, but like how many alumni showed up for them, and seeing that pride and that, again, that family, that network kind of show up for them. Like I felt the love. It was really cool. May or may not have shed a few tears with my athletes then. It's totally fine, but it's really fun to kind of be a part of a place that is authentic and genuine and really just takes a lot of pride in who they are and also loving on their neighbor.
As you start this journey as a head coach, what are some of your future plans for the Georgia Southern program?
I look at this place, and I'm not sure how familiar you are of the state of Georgia as far as swimming and diving goes, but Georgia is pretty dense in talent in our sports, and there are a lot of athletes who want to stay in the state of Georgia and go to college here at home, quote unquote, but they're not going to go to the Georgias of the world, and they're not going to go to the Georgia Techs of the world, and then they feel like there's a bit of a drop off as far as options, right? But here down in Statesboro, I've got quite honestly some of the greatest facilities that I've gotten to work at. Now, obviously, I've worked at Auburn and UNC and all the things, but here at Georgia Southern, we have facilities that rival other Power 5 programs, and we're a mid-major program. And so why can't this place be a powerhouse in the future in the state of, not only in the state of Georgia, but in the surrounding like Southeast as well? Why can't I go toe to toe with some of the other Power mid-major programs and send people to NCAAs and start having conversations with maybe my international athletes, say, who want to go to their national meets and make a run at things. Like those are things that like I think this place could do. I'm not saying it's going to happen tomorrow, right? Fully note, like we got some work to do, but also I look at that, I'm like, I can see a plan, I can see a vision. I'm going to lay it out. I'm going to teach and tell my athletes, this is my plan. Come with me. Come with me. I can't do it alone. I literally cannot get on the blocks and make you like do this for you. I need you to come with me, but I want you to come with me. Let's do it. Let's do something special. So, wow, you got me on my soapbox. So, that's the hope. That's the dream. I'm learning like so much in a very short period of time. Again, almost we've got a lot of work to do before then. But, that's the long-term goal, certainly. And I hope I get to do it, I'm going to fight for it. I'll tell you that.
What advice would you give those college athletes that are entering their first few years as a collegiate swimming and diving athlete?
So your freshman year is always going to be hard. No matter where you're at, no matter how prepared you feel, freshman year is really hard. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. And for a lot of reasons, right? Like it's for a lot of people, it's their first time away from home. It's a new studying sort of structure or learning setting. Maybe it's their first time, like outside of their normal social circle. And so they're having to make new friendships for the first time, and then, oh yeah, finally, like you're being asked to be a Division I athlete and training probably harder than you ever have before, and have to do all the other things in addition to that. So I would say, for those young people, patience, like give yourself some patience, give yourself some grace, like cut yourself some slack, find an outlet, connect with people, connect with your teammates. Like, don't be afraid to like talk with them and share with them. Like, yeah, that set was not fun today. I thought I was going to die. oh, you know what? Me too. But we got better. And that's the important part too, like not dwelling on the negative. I think it's important to vocalize like any emotion that you have, but not getting stuck in it, right? You have to move through it. So if especially if it's a negative emotion, acknowledge it for what it is, move through it, right? And then give yourself some grace and like recognize like this is where I'm going. I think your first couple years in college are people make mistakes, right? But learning from them, I think, are important as well. And that's, again, I take a lot of pride in the coaching aspect of what I do. But the reason I really like working with 18 to 22-year-olds is I feel like the years that you spend in college are so formative in the person that you're meant to become, right? And you learn a lot about yourself, like so much, and getting to play a very small role in that feels like a really mighty privilege. So that's, again, I talked about at the very beginning of this conversation, some of my passions for why I do what I do. There's another one.
What advice would you give those people that are looking to represent a national team, whether it's Team USA or Canada?
Ooh, that's a great question. I think if you're at that point, you need to sit down and have some honest dialogue with your coach. This is the dream that I have. How do I get there? And so and then when sitting with your coach and kind of creating your plan and your thought process of like, how am I going to do it? What's my roadmap look like? Understanding that, that roadmap, following that, and all of the hard of what that looks like you got to embody it, right? I have a colleague, a friend who likes to say, what it takes is what it takes. Man, I'm going to take that nugget with me wherever I go because it's the truth. It's the truth, right? Like you want to go make an Olympic team. It requires a lot of hard work, a lot of sacrifice, and a little bit of luck, right? And if you're not willing to do the things that are necessary to accomplish that, then maybe you need to reevaluate your goals. And that's okay too, right? Like having that conversation of like, okay, maybe I'm not willing to do what it takes. Maybe I need to reevaluate where I'm at. Like that's fine. That's totally fine. But again, I think having that honest dialogue and then committing to the plan, or committing, I should say, defining the plan and then committing to the process, is how you get to those places.
What advice would you give those future college assistant coaches and even head coaches looking to get started?
Oh gosh, no one's ever asked me that before. About future coaches or people who want to get into this profession. I think about Allison when she was first starting out and telling her like it's going to be a grind. Embrace the hard, and know that you're going to learn so much, and know that it's about the athlete at the end of the day. It's not always about like what you think is best. It's what is best for the athlete and how do I support them and get them there. And for those people who are interested in being a college coach and an assistant coach as well, stepping into, what I personally believed when I was an assistant coach was I am an extension of my head coach and his vision or her vision, right? And so I need to make sure, again, when I talked about being a volunteer, like serving is that support role, like, as an assistant, that's the kind of the cap that I put on as well, is like, I'm here to serve this person's vision and be an extension of them. Future head coaches. I don't know if I'm the most equipped person to be giving that yet, considering I'm still like very new, but something that I learned about myself through the interview process of becoming a head coach, and then doing this role is if you want it, you can do it. Like it's not easy, right? But nothing is in life if you really want it. But again, at least here in my role, like I'm just trying really hard to be my authentic self. And because that's the only way I know how to lead is just being me, and trying to, weigh things as logically and as possible, and be as transparent and authentic and genuine and honest as possible, but also recognizing that I'm going to have the hard conversations at times. My AD here, Jared Banco, likes to say that to coach is to love, right? And sometimes love is soft and kind and all the things, but sometimes love has to be hard, right? Sometimes I have to have the hard conversations and hold people accountable. But to coach is to love. And I'm like, gosh, it's so true. That's why I love what I do. So yeah, I don't know if I'm necessarily the right person to be giving head coaches advice, but if anyone wants to know about my journey, they can call me up, I guess.
That's great advice. Where can my listeners find you at on social media along with the Georgia Southern program?
Sure. So my social media accounts are my full name. So it's Allyson, Allyson, the letter A, which is my middle initial, and then Sweeney, Sweeny. I'm on both Instagram and Twitter. Wow, I'm having this moment where I'm like, I can't believe I'm giving my social accounts out. Like, who am I? And then our Georgia Southern Swimming and Diving account is linked both in both of my profiles. But if I'm not mistaken, it's GS Athletics _SD. So like Georgia Southern Athletics _ Swimming and Diving. I could have just butchered that. I'm not always, I'm trying to be really mindful about not having social media on my phone anymore, which is hard with recruiting. So sometimes I cheat. But if you go to my page, like I linked it in there. So gosh, that's really embarrassing that I don't know it off the top of my head.
Thank you again, Coach Allyson Sweeney, for your interview, and best of luck in your future as the head coach for the Georgia Southern program.
Thanks. I appreciate it. I had a lot of fun tonight.
Thank you. You can find Brandon Sports Talk on Facebook at Brandon Sports. You can find Brandon Sports Talk on Facebook at Brandon Sports Talk, Instagram at Brandon Sports Talk, Twitter at Talk_Brandon, and you can find me on YouTube at Brandon Sports Talk. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Thank you again, Allyson Sweeney, for your interview, and best of luck in your future.
You've been watching Brandon Sports Talk. Please feel free to like, share, and subscribe to Brandon Sports Talk on social media and on YouTube.